Hello, I'm Tony Esqueda from Yamaha Synthesizers, here to talk to you about two new additions to the YC Series. That's the YC 73 and the YC 88 stage keyboards. So the Yamaha synthesizer area has three different product categories, and they're focused on the different needs of keyboardists and pianists. There's the CP series, there's the YC series, and then there's our synthesizer series. Now, the CP series, there are two models. There's the CP73 and the CP88. The CP series has a dedicated acoustic piano section with all sorts of grand pianos, upright pianos. There's a dedicated electric piano section with two stomp box style effect processors built into there, a variety of different electric piano types, and then there's also a subsection for backing pads, strings, brass, and other types of instrument sounds. CP series is all about the piano-focused musician. Then there's the YC series. The YC series is a versatile stage keyboard, and it has three tone generation technologies on board. There's VCM effects, there's a vintage drawbar organ modeling type instrument inside there, there's a true FM organ in there, there's electric piano, synthesizer sounds, there's AWM2 sounds with all sorts of acoustic instruments such as pianos and other instruments, strings, brass, and so on. The end result is the YC series is out there for organists and keyboardists and pianists, but keyboard players that want a versatile keyboard where they can just grab one keyboard and take it to the gig and it can kind of cover all of the bases. Then there's the synthesizers, and the synthesizers are all about depth, being able to design sound from the ground up. So that's our Montage and Mo DX series. It's all about deep editing and control, synthesizer controls, filters, envelopes, being able to take and control all sorts of different minuscule parameters that have to do with synthesis. Synthesizers, all about depth. So now I'd like to discuss very briefly a little bit more about the YC series and why it's so versatile. And it comes down to three basic things. That is sound, touch, and design. The YC series has a great sound with three different synth engines and tons of effects. There's three different options for keyboard actions between the three different models, and a great design with direct, immediate sound control and a lightweight but durable aluminum chassis in any of the models, the YC 61, the YC 73, or the YC 88. So, who are those live players? So, YC has three primary profiles in mind, and that is the YC61 is thinking about an organist. Now, it wouldn't have to be just an organist, but specifically, organists would be interested because on the YC61, we have a waterfall action keyboard, and the idea behind that is that it feels more like what an organist would expect to play, especially if they want to do things like palm glisses, things like that, where you want to be able to move your hand up and down the keyboard. The YC61 is designed for organists or people that want to play a non-weighted keyboard action. And of course, you can still play all those weighted keyboard sounds, pianos, electric pianos, all of that stuff. But the idea is that if you are organist-centric or non-weighted keyboard-centric, the YC61 is for you. Also, the other thing about the YC61, and if this is actually a player profile, is if you want the most amazing sounding keyboard to take on your live gigs, but you just don't want to carry something with amazing weight. And the YC61, being 61 keys, it's a non-weighted action, is extremely portable. It weighs less than 16 pounds, so it's very easy to put in a small gig bag and tote around and still have all those great piano sounds, all those amazing organ sounds, all sorts of other stuff. It's an incredibly portable gigging machine. Now, the YC73, which is what I have here, the primary focus is keyboard players that want to be able to have as many different types of keyboard sounds as possible, but really when they get to those weighted keyboard sounds, they really wish they had a weighted action. And the idea behind this is that it feels... It feels really good to play that weighted keyboard action underneath it. Now, the YC88 takes that one step further, because if you're a keyboard player that, I want all that stuff, I don't want to sacrifice any of the different sounds. I want to play a lead sound. I want to play a guitar sound. I want to play, some type of pad or a string section, but I'm primarily a piano player, and what really matters to me the most when I'm performing is that action feels as much like a piano as possible. And if you're that player, that's who the YC88 is for. And those are the three primary profiles. Other than that, there's no difference in the keyboards. The keyboards all have the same sounds in them, and the action, for the most part, is really what defines the difference between the keyboards. So, YC61, non-weighted keyboard action, organ action, waterfall key action, great, super portable gigging keyboard. YC73, also a great portable gigging keyboard, but with weighted keys. 73 weighted keys makes it a little bit more portable than carrying a full-length 88-key keyboard. And then there's the YC88, and the YC88 has 88 weighted keys, but it has those wooden action keys, so it feels as much like a piano keyboard as possible. Now, there is another minor difference between the three keyboards, and that is that the YC73 and the YC88 both have also XLR or balanced outputs on the back, and the YC61 has quarter-inch outputs on the back. Other than that, they all have the exact same sonic capability, they have the exact same sounds, and they have that same great lightweight design for portability, and at the same time, that great design to be able to get that one-on-one relationship between all the different parameters, very easy to manipulate and change the sounds when you want to. Let's talk a little bit about the different sections of the YC73. And what I'm going to focus on mostly here, and this of course applies to the YC61 and the YC88 also, is the keys section. The keys section involves basically all the keyboard instruments. So I'm not going to be talking about the organ section here, which is a whole other world in and of itself. The keys section is where I would find all of my different keyboard sounds. So all of the different piano sounds, all of the different instrument sounds, all of the synthesizer type sounds in this keyboard. Okay, so you're not really going to be looking for organ type sounds in the keys area. That's what the separate organ section is for. Okay, so let's explore a little bit of what's going on in the different key sections. So we have a ton of great piano sounds to pick from, a ton of great instrument sounds to pick from, and you're just going to be amazed at all the different variety of things there are in here. So let's talk about the pianos first. We have a ton of great piano sounds in here. To start with, we have the CFX piano, which is Yamaha's most expensive acoustic piano that we make, and it's just fabulous. It's a 9-foot concert grand piano with just everything that you would expect sonically. Also notice, I'm not talking about just a big sound, but you also have a very expressive sound that if I want to play it very softly, that you don't get just a big sound in the bottom when you play loud, but it gets brighter, it's more expressive, but when you play soft, it responds like you're actually hitting a string. So this is the CFX sound. It's very, 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 very nice. Now, in addition to that, suppose what your piano needs aren't, I don't want a 9-foot concert grand piano sound because that's not the sound I need for my gig or for whatever I'm doing. You also have an S700 piano, which is a different grand piano, completely different sound. So if I were to play the first sound, the CFX, and then I'll play the S700, which sounds very different. So It's been recorded a little differently, mic'd a little differently. If I would play that same passage on a C7, the C7 is probably one of the most recorded pianos that there is. It's one of Yamaha's just most popular acoustic pianos. It's around a 7-foot size piano, so it's smaller than a 9-foot piano, has a different sound, and this sound is also different. And you'll notice that it has a different sound. It sounds different in the different ranges of the keyboard, just another set of colors to add to your piano palette. Also, and this is something that's added in one of the new operating system updates for the YC, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but the C3 from Nashville, this was recorded and just slightly different. And it was recorded in a different manner. It was mic'd a little bit differently, but it was also recorded using a tape recording process. So it has a different, warmer, natural, all sorts of funky harmonic things going on with it. So it sounds a lot like, instead of sounding like a recorded piano, you have kind of the feeling like you're playing something really acoustic. It's a really fantastic variation on the different piano sounds. And then in addition to that, we also have a CF3 piano sound, which is... And this particular sound originates from the Yamaha CF3S piano, but it was a very popular sound that we had in other keyboards that we made, and it's very popular in the worship market, very popular amongst a lot of our Yamaha users, and they really wanted to hear that sound coming out of some of our newer keyboards. So we made sure that in this next update coming, that the YC73, the YC61, and the YC88 have this CF3 live in it as well. Now, along with acoustic pianos, what I find to be really fascinating is that a lot of people just think about, I need the biggest piano possible. Everyone's thinking, everyone wants to have a 9-foot concert grand sound. And I think that that's great, but also if you go back and you listen to just all of your different favorite recordings of your different favorite music that has pianos in it, probably not all of them are 9-foot concert grand pianos. And having different size pianos that are from different eras and that are recorded differently, have those different characteristic sounds that make up the sound that you identify with the songs that you're playing. And one of the sounds I find to be just most unique in here is the upright piano sound in here. So we have a Yamaha U1 upright piano. And it sounds, if you ever grew up, like a lot of us did, grew up playing an upright piano, it has a lot of those interesting characteristics and warmth in different areas of the keyboard. The bottom end of the keyboard is very, very different than it is on a grand piano. And so when you're playing it, it has that real, down-home acoustic vibe to it. That it may sound a lot more and behave a lot more like that acoustic piano you grew up playing. So upright pianos have really made a big comeback in contemporary recordings now on pop music, just because it's a different vibe and it's got a very, very interesting sound. You're hearing a lot more upright pianos on movie soundtracks, on TV soundtracks, and it's because it's something different. It's something not expected. It's something unique, and it really sets itself aside in a track. So definitely something to consider when you're looking for other interesting sounds to use when you're playing is think about the fact that there are actually upright piano sounds in the YC series as well. Now, aside from the acoustic piano sounds, we also have a wealth of electric piano sounds in here as well. But when you were playing an electric piano, originally way back, if you were playing one of those, time-based pianos, the one thing that you would probably know is that they sound a lot like this. They sound very dry, and and they have that kind of the sound is just sucked up as soon as it's done, because they really didn't do anything. It's almost like playing an electric guitar with no effects or no distortion or anything on it. And so a big part about playing good electric piano sounds is being able to have all of those characteristic effects that you would expect to have with that, right? So when you're going to play those electric piano sounds, you want to be able to have all of the, whether it's tremolo, whether you're adding a chorus to it, all of that stuff is built into the YC so that you can get. And of course, the other thing is that all of these sounds are designed to behave like those time-based sounds. So when you play them in different registers, you can hear all those different identifiable little harmonic things, clunky things that went on inside the electric piano. Can you hear that? Way down here, you hear all the little barky sounds, and of course it's different up here. When you add more energy to it, you hear all of those things. And so, for instance, this particular one is called the 78 RD, and it was supposed to be more emblematic of time-based pianos from around 1978. And, as all of those instruments changed, just like electric guitars changed and the electronics changed, pickups changed and so on, the same thing happened with a lot of these time-based pianos. And so as a result, we wanted to make sure to reflect all those different things too. So maybe they had a particular different characteristic in around the 1975 era, where they may be a little bit more compressed. But then up here, they speak a little differently. When you play them soft, when you play them loud, it's a lot different than the way it sounded maybe in 1973. Or in some cases, if you want to go far back, 1967, they were more bell-like. And they bark different down at the bottom. Hear how you don't hear some of those other weird high harmonics, but you hear a really pronounced subtle ringing. So all of that stuff is in here. So really, really expressive, very, very dynamic, and of course, in a lot of cases, kind of historically accurate too. So, as well as the acoustic, the electric, we also have FM. And so, of course, Yamaha is very well known for synthesizers that had FM. And the one thing that I definitely want to show here is the idea that we also have all of those great FM electric piano sounds as well. So all of the different types of sounds that were identified with Yamaha Now, keep in mind also, all of those FM instruments, back in their day, the original ones didn't have effects either, but we wanted to make sure to add all sorts of different types of effects. So if you want to have that particular same type of sound, and you want to have that swimming with reverb, maybe add some chorus. That it's very easy to add that with this great design. You can just simply switch something on, turn a knob, and instantaneously transform the sound into something else. So this is part of the whole piano family that's inside the YC Series keyboards. Now, if we move on here, there's also all sorts of different types of other instrument sounds as well. Ensemble sounds, for instance. So if you're looking for something more along the lines of a brass sound, maybe what you're looking for is some type of strings. But along with just ensemble sounds, there's also solo sounds. So let's say you're going to look for, you want something along the lines of, maybe like some type of solo synth sound. You can do those type of sounds in the YC as well. And also, there's a wide variety of other sounds like guitar sounds and bass sounds. So if you're looking for something more along the lines of, maybe it's a synthesizer bass, like an FM bass. And of course, these sounds can be polyphonic or they can be monophonic, however you want to set them up. If you want to play an upright bass, also, there's electric bass sounds. If you want that slap funk bass sound, that's in here. So all of those sounds are in here as well. Maybe what you're looking for isn't necessarily bass. Maybe what you're looking for is something more along the lines of a guitar. And see, what's also great about this is if I want to change or transform this sound instantaneously, I just want to be able to take the sound and maneuver sonically so that it sounds like it's in a bigger room. Something like just changing the effect, like the reverb, makes it sound all the different. So instantaneously, I could make it dry. But then if I want to change it, just turn that knob. So it's these simple little things that you want to be able to do live, or when you have an idea and you want to just make that sound, you want to take that sound and transform it into something that you're hearing in your head. It's very easy to do in the YC. The YC has some really great guitar sounds. As I played you before, this classical guitar sound is just fantastic. And of course, any type of clean guitar sound, especially if it's an electric sound, kind of has a different personality altogether, and that is because it's just, it evokes a certain type of mood, a certain type of sound. You think of some certain songs when you hear this particular sound. But in this particular case, I really like all of the different tools that the YC offers to mess with those sounds. So for instance, I can have a great sounding sound like this. It has just kind of like a little bit of chorus on it. I mean, if it was dry, it would sound just like this. Of course, maybe add a little bit more chorus yet. So this is great for that type of sound, but suppose I want to take it one element further, and let's say that just to put a little bit of something weird on the top of it, I'd just like to have an analog delay. You can hear that little slapback echo there. And these are really great too, but the one thing that's very unique about the YC is it looks at one particular block of sound characteristics separately from everything else. So you have your key section, you have your organ section, you have your effects section, and then you also have your speaker amp section. And this is what's really great because it's a keyboard with a built-in amp. And I just think that that's really great. Now, we have lots of other different keyboards that have amp simulators and so on, but this is physically on the surface of the keyboard. It says speaker amp. And I think that's just great because it immediately takes you to a direct control of those particular parameters. And just by being able to turn that amp on, and I can pick an organ type amp, say it's a rotary speaker of some type, or if I know I'm going to play a lead sound, and of course this would be great for organ type sounds and things too, but for guitar sounds, this is just great because I can immediately go from a clean sound, and then I want to go ahead and I want to kick in the distortion on my amp, and there I am. A lot of character to it. It's got a lot of tone. You have an EQ over here that you can adjust things on. But then on top of it, if I want, I can also kick in that delay so I can just get that little bit of like an echo on the scream that I make with the guitar if I want to do. I'm going to add a little bit of that delay to it, and then immediately so not particularly a sound that you would associate with, oh, I see a weighted keyboard there. What kind of sound would that make? Probably the last thing you're thinking of is some type of lead sound, but all sorts of great things can come from this. If you want to add another guitar sound in with your guitar player that's already playing and just being able... It's really easy to wail and do solos on it. And then you also have this pitch lever over here, so you can manipulate things that way. And then also, with all of these great effects are built in here, you can have some of them even correspond to your mod lever. You can assign pedals to it. There's all sorts of things that you can do with the sounds once you're playing them with controllers as well. But this guitar sound, one of my favorite things to mess around with. So think about that when you think about the YC. In addition to all of these other different things, there's also lots of different types of synth sounds in here. And it's an important thing to remember because it's very easy to look at, especially the YC 73 and the YC 88 and go like, oh, weighted keyboard, piano sounds. But there's a lot of great synth type sounds in here and like analog pads that you wouldn't even expect using the AWM2 engine. And of course, when you have something like a pad, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to change that sound. And to be able to change the filter, it's that easy to do. Or on a synthesizer, something that you might want to do, along with just having that filter open, is what you might want to do is you might want to change the attack. And I can do that as well with just one knob turn. So instead of having it sound like a slow attack, maybe I would like it to be a sharper attack. So I want to create something like this. Same sound, I just turn the knob all the way to left. Very, very easy to do. And so it's important to remember, not only do you have a lot of great sounds in here, but you'll have a lot of great ways to be able to control the sound as well. Now, along with these AWM2 sounds, we also have FM synthesizer sounds as well, and the ability to call up, really great sounding, like I said, bass sounds. So all of those characteristic FM synth sounds that you associated with, say, the DX7 and those other type of FM synths, there's a lot of those great things in here as well. And like I just showed before, the ability to be able to control the envelope, to control the filter on a lot of these different synthesizer sounds, it just allows you to have a really expressive palette of different things accessible to you. Basically, at your fingertips. I mean, whether it's a basic string sound, or at the same time, if you're looking for just some type of like really aggressive bass sound, synth type sound. So this can be monophonic or polyphonic. And then of course, I can also adjust it tonally. So if I want to adjust the filter or adjust one of the effects, maybe I want to add a different effect or a chorus, or I could even run it through a speaker simulation too. So now I'd like to talk about the YC OS or YC operating system. So we make it available that as we change and enhance the different instruments that we make, in this case I'm talking about the YC keyboard line, that there are updates available periodically to change, enhance, do different things with the instrument as time progresses. So for instance, when we offer an operating system update, it's always free. It usually offers new sounds and then offers new features or parameters that can be manipulated in the keyboard. In this particular instance, as soon as we launch the YC 73 and YC 88, there's going to be a new YC OS update, version 1.1. This is going to add some new acoustic pianos to the keyboard. It's also going to add new electric pianos as well, and then it'll add some new parameters or new features to the operating matrix of the keyboard itself. So it's always important to remember that as people are using our instruments, we're always listening, always finding out how people feel we could make them more expressive, what we could do to take the instrument to the next level. And if we can do that within an operating system update, we do that so that everyone has the maximum positive experience that they can possibly have with our different instruments. So definitely something to check out. So next, I'm going to play a piece of music for you to show off that guitar sound a little bit and what it can do, and a little bit of the organ that's in the YC as well. The rest of the tracks that are used to play the music in this were done with the Yamaha synthesizer, and everything you're hearing is coming from a Yamaha instrument. So hope you enjoy. Thank you again for joining me for this presentation on our new YC Series keyboard editions, the YC 73 and the YC 88. If you'd like to find out more information about Yamaha synthesizers, please go to YamahaSynth.com. There's all sorts of great, interesting articles up there. There's some downloads, all sorts of information having to do with Yamaha synthesizers. I'm Tony Esqueda from Yamaha, and thank you for joining me for this Believe in Music presentation.